With a great end to the international break and England winning both games in the World Cup qualifiers, we are now going to be predicting our game week number 4. But before we do that, we do need to check out how we got on in game week 3. Then we're going to go through the game week 4 predictions like we have just said, before finally taking a look at the best fantasy football team for game week 3 and also checking out our team for game week 4. So let's get into it. So we're going to be starting off with the game week 3 results. Starting off with game 1, which was Chelsea taking on Fulham. So we predicted a 3-1 win there. The result was 2-0, so we did manage to get the goal difference correct. So therefore we get 1.5 points for the first game. Then we're going to be moving into the second game, which was Manchester United versus Burnley. A lot closer this match than I thought it was going to be, which, like we said last week, we expected Man United to be doing a lot better than they did here against a team which is newly promoted. We went for a 2-0 win to United, and they actually ended up being 3-2. So we only actually gained 1 point there. Next up, it was Sunderland taking on Brentford. So we went for a prediction of 1-1. It looked like a pretty close game, I have to say, but in the end, Sunderland snatched it with another 3 points. So well done to them, and they got a 2-1 win. So unfortunately, because we went for a draw and it was actually a 2-1 win to Sunderland, we get 0 points. But moving swiftly on to the next match, which was Tottenham versus Bournemouth. So we went for the Tottenham win. They've had a cracking start to the season, the first 2 games. We thought game week 3 they're going to be just the same, but unfortunately they did not perform. So we went for a 3-1 prediction for Tottenham, and it actually ended as a 1-0 win to Bournemouth. So again, 0 points on that one. Next up, it was Wolves taking on Everton. So I thought this would be quite a close game. However, I did think Everton were going to win. I'd like to keep saying every week, I think Wolves may be one of the teams which do get demoted, and so we went for a 1-0 win for Everton, and it actually ended up being 3-2. So again, a really close match here in game week 3. We get the 1 point though for the result, and Everton seem to be performing and scoring a lot at the moment, which is not good as Villa take on Everton this week. So next up, it was Leeds United taking on Newcastle at home. So we thought it was going to be a big thrashing there for the Geordies. However, how wrong were we? It ended 0-0 at home, so both teams went away with 1 point. Brighton versus Manchester City. After a really poor start from Brighton, we thought that this could get worse, but unfortunately it did not, as Brighton went over and won 2-1 at home. We went for a 3-0 prediction to Manchester City, so we got that one completely wrong again, so that is another 0 points there. Then it was Nottingham Forest taking on West Ham. So we thought Nottingham Forest playing really well at the moment, they should get the win. West Ham not playing very well at all, they're probably going to get thumped. So we went for a 3-1 win to Nottingham Forest, and how wrong were we? Because West Ham went out there and smashed it, won 3-0 and got 3 points, starting off their Premier League campaign for this season. So that does mean that we get 0 points, unfortunately, before we move on to Liverpool versus Arsenal. So we thought this was going to be a close affair, which it was, and we went for the draw. I did actually watch most of the game, and I thought that it was going to be a draw. However, Liverpool with a beautiful free kick into that top corner, what a goal it was, and they got the 3 points. So unfortunately there, we get 0 points for that prediction. That was not a good page, I have to say. And then finally, Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. We thought this one would go horribly wrong. However, I have been predicting Villa to win each match because I will never predict Villa to lose. We went for a 2-1 to Villa, and unfortunately it was a 3-0 thrashing to Palace. So again, 0 points there. So this week has not been great at all. That is awful, I have to say. My predictions for that week were horrific, so hopefully this week they're going to be a lot better. That does mean my total points go up to 20.5. I have actually got a league with my family, and I'm currently in second position, so I thought I was doing awfully. However, some of my family are doing it 10 times worse, which is good. But now let's make our way onto game week 4 predictions. So we're going to start off with game 1, which sees Arsenal taking on Nottingham Forest. So in this game, I believe it could be a bit of a whitewash, especially as Forest have just got rid of their manager, which I was really actually surprised about. Obviously, he's been having issues with the chairman, but they have got rid of him eventually and brought in Pochettino. So it's going to be his first game, and he's up against Arsenal. After managing Tottenham, this could be a big game. However, I'm going to go for a comfortable 3-1 victory to Arsenal. We'll have to see how this one goes. I'm not too sure how this one will go. This could be a complete flip side too and be a 3-1 win to Forest, or it could end in a simple 0-0 draw. Let me know in the comments what you think of this one, because I think this might be a pretty interesting one. Next up, it is Bournemouth versus Brighton. So Brighton coming off a massive win against Manchester City in their previous game, and Bournemouth also coming with a win too, especially 2 wins out of 3 so far at the start of this season, performing a lot better than I expected. They're scoring goals too, so for this reason I am actually going to go for a draw here. I think Brighton might play a little bit more defensively than they have in the previous games, and especially after coming away with a win against Manchester City, maybe they might get the goal too. So I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think this is pretty fair. Obviously Brighton are away and Brighton play a lot better at home, but we'll have to see how that game goes. Game 3 is Crystal Palace taking on Sunderland. So Palace so far unbeaten, Sunderland with 2 wins though. However, I feel like they've had a little bit of an easier start compared to Palace. Palace, however, did beat Aston Villa, which seems to be pretty easy at the moment, but hopefully that will all change. But I do think Palace have that edge at home, and for that reason I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Palace. It's going to be a close game, like I said. I've been believing in Palace from the start. I think they've got a pretty good team. Obviously they've lost some good players, the likes of Eze. However, I do think that they will still perform this season. Sunderland obviously outperforming, I think, at the moment. However, they have got a good team, so maybe they can keep this going for the rest of the season. Next up, it is Everton with an absolutely cracking start versus Aston Villa with probably one of the worst starts for a long time. Everton coming from 2 wins and Aston Villa coming from 2 losses. So I can't see this going any other way other than Everton winning. However, I am going to believe in Aston Villa's signing. So we have got Harvey Elliott, who has just joined. We've obviously also got Jadon Sancho. So hopefully both of these players can bring a little bit of attacking flair to the squad. So for that reason, I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory to Villa. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet whatsoever. However, hopefully the international break has given our players a bit of a refresh. I saw Konza playing really well and Morgan Rogers for England against Serbia, so hopefully they can bring that back to the Villa camp and we can come away with a win. Fulham versus Leeds United. For some reason, I feel like this is going to be a very boring affair. I don't think any goals are going to be scored in this game. However, they may prove me wrong. Leeds obviously with a better start than I thought they would have, with a win and a draw, and Fulham coming from 2 draws and a loss. So to be honest, both teams haven't had a cracking start, but again, they're probably sitting around mid-table right now. So I'm going to go for a draw 0-0. I think it's going to be pretty boring, like I said earlier, so we'll have to see how this one goes. Now it is 2 teams sat very close to the bottom of the table as Newcastle take on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Wolves probably having one of the worst starts to a season in a long time with 3 losses, haven't even got a point on the board yet, and Newcastle with 2 draws and a loss. With Newcastle being at home, I do think they will start to perform. Obviously they've just lost Isak in the transfer window, however he's not been playing much recently anyway. However, they have gained Wissa from Brentford, so I do think that he will definitely help with the attacking side. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Newcastle. I don't think many teams score that many against Wolves, so I feel like it will be 1 or 2. However, we're going to go for 2, especially with the new attacking force of Wissa from Brentford. West Ham versus Spurs. Now, I feel like this one's a little bit of an awkward one, especially after the previous results where West Ham went and smashed the team and then Tottenham went and lost, but I think this could be a pretty close one. And I feel like a lot of the games this week could be pretty close. However, I do think Tottenham should win this one. They are playing West Ham, who are a team which has not been playing well that much. However, in the last game, they obviously did pretty well. So for that reason, I'm going to go for a 2-1. I don't think Tottenham's going to be able to hold a clean sheet. I don't know whether Tottenham have lost it now and the confidence has dropped, and that could be game over for them. However, I'm going to go for a Tottenham win, and if they lose this week, then I know that I need to change something. Brentford versus Chelsea. Brentford, again, I don't think will do very well this season. Chelsea sat up towards the top of the table right now, absolutely smashing it and scoring lots of goals. I do think they will continue this run of form, and for that reason, I'm going to go for a 4-1 win to Chelsea. So lots of goals scored again. Hopefully, João Pedro is getting quite a few of those, as he will definitely be helping my fantasy football team. But we'll have to see how it goes. Brentford sometimes come out, and when they play, they do play well. However, the only team that they've beaten so far this season was Aston Villa, and we have not been performing at all. On the Sunday, it's only going to be 2 games this week, and the first one is going to be Burnley taking on Liverpool. Burnley being a newly promoted side, however, have got a win against Sunderland, taking on Liverpool, who are currently unbeaten. I can't see this going any other way, and for that reason, I'm going for a 3-1 victory to Liverpool. Again, their team just looks amazing, let's be honest. However, their defence is a little bit leaky, so I do think that they may concede, although they did hold a clean sheet against Arsenal, so you never know, we'll have to see what happens. And then finally, it's a big Manchester derby, which is Manchester City taking on Manchester United. I feel like a lot of these sort of derbies end in draws, so usually I do go for a draw, and I am going to go for a draw again of 1-1. However, this could go either way, to be honest. Manchester City, after losing to Brighton, if they play the way they did again, they will lose to United, and then the same with United. They've been leaking goals left, right and centre. They need a keeper, which is going to perform, so hopefully their new signing will perform, but we will have to see, and for that reason, I'm going to go for 1-1. And now we're going to be moving into the final section of the video. It is fantasy football time, so let's take a look at how the Sheffield Super League is going. So Kian Tuchel is still right up at the top, 193 points, 20 off of second place, which is actually now Axel FC, so Alex Morrison there moving into second. In third, you've got Reynolds with Oh My God, so he's dropped down a position, and the best team of the week was Ekitike's Ibophobia, which is Thomas Hancock's team. So I'm going to be taking a look at that one in just a moment. I've managed to come off the bottom of the table there, leapfrogging George there with Worse Than You Think. It's not worse than you think, it is rock bottom, and we are there in 7th with Sheffield's squad. The real deal is Eskil Nord, who is in 6th place, and then Girls on Film, which is Tom Need, has managed to leapfrog again. So he now seems to be heading his way up the table. He's got into it, especially after starting Game Week 1 at the bottom. So let's take a look at Ekitike's Ibophobia team, who got the most points last week. So that is 57 points is what they got, with Sells in goal, so only got 2 points there in net. Kingsley actually got 0 on the bench, so thankfully he put Sells in. Kukurea did well in defence there, getting the 6 points for, I believe, the clean sheet, against Fulham. Then you've got Renildo, who got 1 point, so not that great, but then Munoz gets 9 up against Aston Villa, so you got the bonus 1 point for the clean sheet as well, and the defensive contributions. He got an extra 2 points, so he smashed it there in defence. Then in the middle, he's got Semenyo, who only got 2 points, didn't manage to score last week, but Grealish gets 10, and that's mainly because of the assist that he got. Mo Salah only gets 3 that week, and Anderson only gets 2. Then he's captained João Pedro, which was the smart thing to do, as he managed to get a goal last week against Fulham too. So he's got 18 points just from João Pedro there. Ekitike gets 2 points, and then Wood on 2 too. The substitutions didn't do that great by the looks of it, but I have to say, quite a low scoring week for everyone, especially with 57 being the top. However, he did manage to leapfrog a few people in the table, so he'll be happy with that. Now let's have a look at how my team got on last week then. We didn't do great. We only managed to get ourselves 42 points. We had Sanchez in goal, who actually got 6, so it was a good start there, and João Pedro captains, who got us 18 points, both there for Chelsea. At the back, we had Konza, Nico Williams, Saliba and Van der Ven, who unfortunately all got us just 1 point. So that shows how shocking we did there at the back. In midfield, we had Xhaka, Mohamed Salah and Gakpo, all getting a decent number of points, 4-3-3. Can't really complain too much about that. And then up top, we had Richarlison, Watkins, and then, like we said before, we had João Pedro. So we got 2 points from Richarlison and 2 points from Watkins. I thought Tottenham were going to win and get some goals. They didn't. Watkins, I was hoping would score. He didn't. And then let's take a look at the bench just quickly. We had Verbruggen, which only got 2, so that was good play there for me. Marlon, who only got 2. But Goodmanson with 9 points. Unfortunately, we did not play him, and he could have it could have been a game changer. We could have been right up at the top of the table. But unfortunately, we did not put him on. And now it's finally time to take a look at my team for game week 4. So we've actually made one transfer at the start of this week, and that is getting rid of Cole Palmer. He's a very good player, I have to say, but he's injured at the moment. So we've had to get rid of him, and we have replaced him with his Chelsea teammate Enzo, who's been doing really well so far at the start of this season. So hopefully he keeps it up, especially as they are playing Brentford this week. So hopefully he can get some assists. But I will show you my team for the week. Starting off in net with the Chelsea keeper, we have got Sanchez. We're then moving into defence, so we've got Konza, who will hopefully get a clean sheet against Everton. We've got Goodmanson, who got 9 points last week, and hopefully will get a clean sheet against Fulham. And then we've got Van der Ven, who is going to be hopefully getting a clean sheet there against West Ham. Then in the middle, we've got Enzo, Xhaka, Mohamed Salah and Gakpo, before finally up front, we've got Richarlison, João Pedro and Watkins. I've got really good high hopes for this game week. We're going to captain João Pedro again. Hopefully he can get some goals, and fingers crossed Watkins can get off the mark too for this season. We need a goal. Villa's still not scored yet. We need a goal. Everton as well, hopefully will not turn up, but Grealish has been playing pretty well, and maybe they might, but we'll have to see, because it has been in the international break. So hopefully Emery's going to bring us some magic. But that is going to be the end for this video, so I do hope you all enjoyed, and let me know down in the comment section below too of your predictions for the upcoming matches and how your fantasy football team is doing, and whether you've made any changes in the hope that you'll get some points this week. Fingers crossed Aston Villa gets their first win this weekend versus Everton, and I'll see you all in tomorrow's video, where I believe it might be another part run.